All right. I know we're all reeling just a little bit. We got the Frank Ragnow news. So I'm going to come at you with a video where we get good news. I'm going to call this a triple dose of good news because I want, and all of it for the offensive line. And I want to make sure that everybody realizes that, yes, we have lost Frank Ragnow. Does that hurt our chances at winning a Super Bowl? Duh. Like, of course, anytime you lose an all-pro top 3 center in the NFL, it's going to hurt your chances. It's going to hurt your chances of going all the way. It's going to make your team just a little bit worse. Like, that is something that we absolutely know. But here's what I am here to tell everyone. It is very clear that the team knew what was going to happen. So we're going to do 3 things in this video. We are going to talk about the money that we are going to save coming off of Frank Ragnow's retirement. Then we are going to talk about the depth that we have at the offensive line. And then we are going to talk about the caliber of players that we have to replace him. I think your best bet for the center might already be on this roster. And I know everybody's immediately going out and being like, "Ooh, what center are we going to go get?" And maybe we do go get Andrews or something like that. Maybe. But I think the best plan is on this team, and I think we've already gotten a little hint and a little peek into what that looks like. So before we do that, what do you think is the best plan to replace Frank? Frank the Tank? All right. What do you think is the best plan to replace this man? Is it Christian Mahogany? Is it Tate Ratledge? Is it Graham Glasgow? What does that? Is it Frazier? Or is it going from an outside source and bringing someone in, another veteran for the interior offensive line? I'm going to make an argument as to why we stick around. But first, let's look at the contract. Let's see what this looks like. So, Frank Ragnow, this is his contract currently. He was going to make $14 million this year and $16 million next year. There are 2 options coming off this contract that he can do. Option 1 is the traditional method. This is the one that I am going to be going for, but not necessarily. So, if they do that, you take all of the guaranteed money. He's still owed $8.4 million guaranteed. So, you have to pay that. Whether he continues to play or not, he has guaranteed money. You're giving it to him. And the Lions better not make the same mistake by asking him to give that signing bonus back, all right? I just want to be clear on that like they did with Kelvin Johnson. But you look at this, so you have a cap hit of 8.4 as opposed to the 14 million. That frees up about $5.6 million. That's option 1. Option number 2 is you split it. All right, so you would free up $9.2 million this year and then $3.6 million the year after. Now, the other thing that you have to think about and take into consideration, this is where my salary cap nerd comes out, the money that you have left this year goes into next year. All right, it goes into next year. So if we can have even more left over, that would be a really, really good thing. But I am more in the side of we have the money now. Free up $5.6 million. You're not trying to sign a bunch of people now. You are trying to free up money for the extensions coming forward. And getting that $16 million off the books next year will help us eat some of the salaries and the people that we have to pay going forward, right? I'm talking about the Branches, the Laportas, the Hutchinsons, right? All of the Jack Campbells. There are the Jameson Williams of the world, right? Like there are all these guys that we have to continue to pay. So that is what the salary cap implications look like. We have a chance where next year we will be $16 million richer and able to spend that however we please because Frank's not there. Now, for a linebacker or for an offensive lineman of his caliber, that was a deal, and we understand that. All right, news number 2. This isn't necessarily directly on the offensive line, but this is very interesting. New linebacker for the Lions, and this is I'm going to connect this. It says intensity in Detroit is eye-opening. Grant Stewart. All right, this is a guy we brought in at linebacker. I think he might actually play a little bit for us on the defense, but he is a special teams wizard. All right, and he's played with the Bucs and the Colts. All right, 2 pretty well-run franchises. And here's what he had to say. He said, it's been something when asked about his adjustment period. You know what I'm saying? All right. He said, and I'm studying my butt off just because the standard is the standard here. So I'm just trying to really match the level of intensity and expectation. In other words, he's been at two good organizations with two good coaches, and he's basically saying what you're doing in Detroit is unlike anything I've ever seen before, the intensity. And that is why I'm confident that the next starting center for this team might already be on the roster. I think they could already be here. And I really do feel strongly with that because great players aren't born, they're made. All right? Good players are born. Great players are made. And the Detroit Lions have shown that they can do that. This is our depth chart right now. They already have, and this is interesting, they already have Frank the Tank off and Tate Ratledge as the starting center. Why are they doing that on this depth chart? This is on our lads. Probably because of all the news that Tate Ratledge has been taking first-team snaps at center. They are going to give Tate every stinking opportunity they possibly can to play center for this team and be the center for this team for the next 10 years. When I look at Tate Ratledge, do you know who I see? I see Frank Ragnow. I see an athletic marvel, a mauler, and a guy that just loves the game of football. I think Tate Ratledge, not year one, he's not going to be Frank year one, but he has the opportunity and the ability, if he can effectively play the center position, to be a top 3 center in this league, top 5 center. I truly believe that to be true. If he's not ready this year, it's Graham Glasgow, right? If he's not ready to help with all the checks and the alignments and the defense, reading what's going on the defense, then you put Graham Glasgow in there, and Graham Glasgow is your center. Like, he's filled in the past and done an admirable job. Graham Glasgow's best position, however, is right guard. So if you can bring him in at right guard, Mahogany Man's the left, and Tate in the center, you still have an offensive line and an interior that I think can be formidable. Center is not an easy position to learn. So if Tate is not ready year one, you give it to Graham. I also know Miles Frazier is taking snaps as well. The only way Miles Frazier gets into this is if he beats out Graham Glasgow for a position. It's really that simple. You still have Iwasika, right? You still have Michael Neese as a backup center option. And so this is still an offensive line where I believe the depth is still deeper than it was last year, even if the starting 5 is not as good. So the good news is that we drafted like we knew this was going to happen. We did. Hey, every one of us was wondering why we drafted 2 guards, right? Because we're like, oh, Christian Mahogany. We just assumed that it was because maybe they don't trust Christian Mahogany, or maybe they think Graham Glasgow's, got one foot in the grave. Maybe it's because they knew what was going on with Frank. Maybe it is. So here's the question on if Tate Ratledge has that same, because I know what we're thinking with Frank. He was an athletic marvel. He had good size. He could move people, and he really was that athletic freak. Here's Tate Ratledge's RAS score, a 9.99. In other words, he was the second most athletic center ever to test. If it was for centers. All right? If it was for a guard, he was like a 9.93 or something like that. All right? Here is Frank Ragnow's RAS. He was a 9.93. Everything is very, very similar. All right? Size, weight, speed, agility, right? All of those things are very, very similar, except Tate Ratledge ran that 3-cone like nobody's business, all right? Nobody's business. Frank did not do that very well. And then we have our other guy. Here's Graham Glasgow, right? He had a 7.97 as a center coming out of Michigan, round 3 pick. This is back in 2016, all right? He was athletic as well. So they have multiple people that could play this, all right? 23 reps on the bench for Graham, 26 on the bench for Frank, and 25 on the bench for Tate. These are guys that are very comparable players. And I when I watch film of Tate Ratledge, watch it, Then go back and watch film of Frank Ragnow at Arkansas. Tell me they don't remind you of each other. Tell me they don't. The in-house options are right there. So there's your good news right there. We have a culture where great players are built. We approach the draft like we knew Frank was going to go. And we get to save overall about $21 to $22 million over the next 2 years, which absolutely can be used as we're trying to re-sign all these guys. And you hope that you can develop these young guys on the interior offensive line and that Brad Holmes hit a couple of home runs. So if you can get Frazier and you can get Mahogany in a 5th and a 6th round pick that can become starting caliber, solid guards for you, and Tate Ratledge in the 2nd round can do that, you have the next 4 years cheaply locked up on the interior of the offensive line. Cheaply. And you can still have one of the better offensive lines in the league because you have great tackles. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.